Vice President of Lacrosse Operations for US Lacrosse, and star at the University of Buffalo. And Kitt Carpenetti, welcome to the Crease.
Thank you for having me.
Buffalo, not really known for lacrosse. How did you like playing lacrosse up in Buffalo?
I loved it. I mean, extreme lacrosse, you know, it snows and you have to shovel to see the lines. I mean, that's when you know you're really playing. I mean, I grew up on Long Island, and you know, this recruiting scene that we know about today wasn't really going on. I mean, I got to play at schools like Syracuse, Michigan, when they didn't have varsity programs, through the club program, and was able to put my academics first, and it was a great experience. Made a lot of friends there and was able to carry on my love for the sport. So,
recruiting, big thing. A lot of coaches are talking about it. When's too young? When is it old enough? What is your stance on the recruiting?
Well, we actually, you know, are concerned about the impact that early recruiting is having on, you know, young athletes. You know, kids who are deciding to specialize in lacrosse too young because they think if they do that, they'll have a better chance of playing at the highest level. Parents who are spending an inordinate amount of money and putting pressure on their children, and kids are just burning out. And so, you know, the way things used to go, you'd be able to play multiple sports, you'd be able to go to a handful of recruiting events, and you know, by the time you were a junior or senior, you'd make a decision on where you wanted to go to school and play lacrosse. And so we absolutely support the legislation that NCAA is considering next month, that was supported by the college coaches from the women and men's game, that would turn back recruiting timetable to September 1 of the junior year. We really, really hope that NCAA shows some leadership there and approves that legislation, because without it, you know, there's really no enforcement body out there that's outside of the realm of what we can do and that the college coaches can do on their own.
Age limits the clubs. It's like for some sports, you really have to have like an age, but it seems like for lacrosse, a lot of it's grade. So someone could be, you know, 13 years old playing with an 11-year-old. How are you guys looking to maybe change that?
We've definitely been focused on trying to address that issue through a variety of ways. One, we're really focused on player development, youth player development. And so we've established some standardized youth rules that are 14U and below. First time that that's ever been done for boys and girls. Within that, we provide guidelines in terms of what contact is appropriate at different age levels, when it's appropriate to introduce equipment. And we've also recommended, where we have designated age groups that were established based on what we know is appropriate developmentally for the child. So rather than grouping a child by grade, as you suggested, or by graduation year, let's say when they're 10 years old, where you run the risk of having kids who are 4 years apart, we're recommending, and this is certainly something that will take some time, but single age, single grade groupings. And that's a major change for lacrosse, but as you said, in other sports, it's commonplace. And some of the other things that US Lacrosse is doing to try to aid organizations in making that move and aiding parents is we've started to provide age verification through US Lacrosse membership. So if you're an organization and you want to be able to verify that the children playing on your team are the age they say they are, you can go ahead and do that. We're also sanctioning events now. So again, over time, you'll start to see sanctioned events putting together divisions not just based on graduation year, hopefully, but they will also have grade and be able to verify that the athletes playing in those divisions are actually the age that they say they are. Those types of things those are major changes that we certainly know don't happen overnight, but those are some big steps that we're taking to try to you know, create a fair environment, a safe environment where kids, you know, when they show up to play at a summer tournament, they're not getting blown up by like kids who are 4 years older than them.
I'm gonna ask you about helmets for the girls. Sounds like it's a big thing going on. What do you think about having helmets for the girls?
Well, US Lacrosse took a leadership role about 6 or 7 years ago to try to develop with this organization called ASTM International a standard, performance standard for headgear. In our rules, at the college level on down for a very long time, there was a provision in the rules that said soft headgear was allowed. And you know, we started to see people wearing all kinds of contraptions on the field for taekwondo and headbands, and we started to hear more of the stories like, oh, my child had a couple of concussions, we want her to play in this tournament, so if we put this headband on, will she be allowed to play? And that was really concerning because none of those products were A, designed for lacrosse, B, had any evidence or research to prove that they were addressing a head injury, much less a concussion, and we were concerned about that. Concussion rates as a whole, is greater awareness of them. There's still a lot to learn about them. We don't believe, and we didn't believe, that putting a men's lacrosse helmet or an ice hockey helmet was the right intervention, because the types of injuries that we see in women's lacrosse are not the ones that are a result of running down collision head-to-head, like you see in maybe football, or head-to-head and then body to ground. We see a lot of incidental impacts from stick and ball. So the standard was really developed for the headgear, a couple of things, to try to address those impacts. So not the catastrophic impacts, not the concussions. I mean, no helmet prevents concussions, but really try to minimize the severity of the impacts caused by a ball and stick. We felt like if we did that, we really addressed on a holistic approach to safety with coaches training, officials training, adherence to rules. That approach overall would help increase safety, and that we wouldn't have to require headgear to be worn. So headgear isn't required in women's lacrosse, but now if you choose to want to wear it, you can, and there's a standard for it that demonstrates it can actually do something to mitigate those impacts. So, you know, there's folks out there who are choosing to use it, and then there are folks out there who aren't. And from our standpoint, it's really too early to tell whether or not it's something we think everybody should be required to use.
Last thing for you, where do you see the future of lacrosse going?
Well, I mean, the growth is still tremendous. I mean, at the collegiate level, I was just reading the NCAA put out a statistic that the sports growth at the NCAA level has doubled from the year 2000 to today. And it just really shows no sign of slowing down. And another great statistic that they put out is that, I mean, really, lacrosse, I think that the opportunities for kids who play at a young age to continue playing in high school and college is maybe greater than any other sport. So I think, you know, you brought up my Buffalo experience. One of the things I always say is if you're playing lacrosse and you want to play, you know, there's a place for you. What we're concerned about, I would say, is that, you know, kids are starting to play lacrosse at younger ages, which isn't a concern. That's great. But we really want to make sure that they're having a fun, challenging experience, have trained coaches, have a quality experience, so that they're not leaving the sport by the time they get to age 8. I mean, there's so many opportunities for growth. I mean, it's not called the fastest sport in America because it's just fast on the field. It's growing because it's so much fun, and we want to make sure we're preserving that fun and helping the sport to grow. Our athlete development model is really focused on that, putting the kid first and helping kids find a way to fit into the pathway that the lacrosse provides for life. So we see we're very bullish on the growth for lacrosse. So.
Ann, thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me.
In the Crease.